You're listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I am directly broadcasting live. I am your conservative Sherpa. I'm this guy, and I am guiding you through a veritable maelstrom of really bad stuff. Lies, chaos, deceit, betrayal, tyranny, all those things, and more, and worse. The worst thing you could possibly think. This is going to be an abbreviated show. My tinnitus has decided to descend, and rather than have no show, which is a guaranteed way to make sure that you don't have any watchers, I decided to go through with it. Tonight's show, like I said, will be a bit abbreviated. I may be able to fill in a little bit more of it, perhaps at a later date, but at least for right now, we're going to be talking about how a propaganda does in fact work. And that guy right there happens to be Edward Bernays. We're going to be talking about him and another individual, and how, in concert with all of those people and a little bit of history, we're going to show you that much of what you see, hear, think has been created and crafted with, quite specifically, your mind in mind. And there's a long history of that. No guests tonight. But my guess would be I'm going to shoot for about 45 minutes. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to, if I'm going to take a break tonight. I may. I'll just wait and see how things are going at that point. In any event, Auf jeden Mal, thanks for tuning in tonight, and I appreciate it. We have to first go back into history. Oh, wait, before I do that, I want to give just a little bit of a hint as to what I'm going to be talking about with regard to this coming Thursday. This coming Thursday night, I'm going to have my cybersecurity guest, my expert on, Mike Fitzpatrick. And I have a whole bunch, a massive list of things to talk to him about. However, one of the most recent things, and I doubt you'll be able to see the little teeny letters here, it's something that I'm sure he can explain, and looking into it, it seems to be very, very significant. And there's an ex-individual to whom I believe you should subscribe and follow, and that's Kim.com, at Kim, Kim, .dotcom, Kim.com. And what he broke is this, and I'm going to be speaking with Mike in depth about this, but this seems to me to be rather significant. Palantir was allegedly hacked. An AI agent was used to gain superstar access, and here's what the hackers apparently found. Peter Thiel and Alex Karp commit mass surveillance of world leaders and titans of industry on a massive scale. They have thousands of hours of transcribed and searchable conversations of Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Elon Musk. They have backdoored the devices, cars, and jets of world leaders and accumulated the biggest archive of blackmail material. Now, if you take a moment to process that, what you'll discover is, gee, what is Palantir? Or what is Palantir Technologies? And it turns out, because this is one of the few times that I ever went to AI for an explanation. And what I got back from, I think this was Gemini, was Palantir Technologies is an American software company specializing in data integration, analytics, and AI-driven operating systems for, very important, for government agencies, defense, and commercial enterprises. Founded in 2003, it helps organizations analyze massive, disparate data sets to uncover patterns, supporting intelligence, law enforcement, and corporate decision making. Now, you tell me what aspect of any of those things that I just mentioned can't be applicable to every aspect of your life. Government, private, it's immaterial. Okay, that was really weird. While trying to figure out whether I was going to do a show tonight, I have a big window over here, and it's been snowing. And those who don't know me, I have a really very, very large, very hot computer right over this monitor in front of my desk. And this thing is, well, I don't know, it was state of the art a year and a half ago. It is liquid cooled, and it still runs hot. And sometimes this thing gets so hot that, well, I leave that window open over there so that this room can be, I keep this room at anywhere from 60 to 65 degrees at the most. And just before I started the show, and maybe you heard it, maybe you didn't, but even under these cans and out that open window, there's a very large owl. And I heard him hoot. I've seen him before. This owl probably stands, I don't know, 2.5 feet tall. One of the biggest owls I've seen around here. So during the show, you may or may not be able to hear the owl. But before I got off on this tangent, I just heard him hooting over there. And it sounds like he's on the roof of the house that's next door. I don't know. That's just really weird. But in any event, we're going to be talking about Palantir on Thursday night with Mike Fitzpatrick, and it just reminded me to go ahead and do that. But to go back to the original concept of this show tonight, as abbreviated as it may be, we're going to be talking about propaganda and that individual that you just saw. That guy's Edward Bernays. And if you talk about propaganda, propaganda comes from a Latin word, a couple of Latin words, actually, which means propagare, that's to spread, or to propagate. Propaganda, propagate. It refers to the intentional spreading of what we call disinformation, misinformation, ideas, or also and this is really important, rumors crafted to change or push various aspects of public opinion, my public opinion, your public opinion, all of us. It wants to change actual behavior or how it is that you think in your mind about a certain thing or an issue or an institution or even a singular individual. You know, first example coming to mind, Donald Trump, who has been subject to vast and starkly wide and deep amounts of propaganda. Propaganda originally was said not to be necessarily negative, sort of in and of itself, but I think you and I inherently know that, well, that's not true. Maybe that's propaganda in and of itself. You know, and people usually reference this when people think of propaganda. I think one of the first things they access in their brain is, well, World War II. But mostly it's designed to purposely manipulate people. It's designed to show and present a certain very select series of facts, you know, air quotes, if you will. And that ranges from like exaggeration on one hand to complete and utter out and out lies on the other hand. It's created, though, for certain very specific goals. So propaganda inherently, and I think you intuit this if you're a smart individual, mostly doesn't care about facts. It cares about gaslighting. Well, now that's an interesting comparison, don't you kind of think? I'll talk about gaslighting in just a minute. As, however, with most everything, Demorat or leftist, it predicates itself on and hooks itself in. This is one of the major reasons it's effective. It hooks itself on the emotions. And that's why it is so wonderful if you are behind the propaganda itself. It isn't interested in conversations, as Demorats say they are interested in, but they don't believe that. Try to have a conversation with a Demorat, GFL. And today, propaganda primarily exists to smear individuals or opponents or actual ideas themselves, small or large, or even stifle or stop conversations entirely. We're immediately thinking politics when we talk about propaganda, and for the purposes of the show tonight, yeah, that's mostly what I'm going to be talking about for politics. That's my main point. But don't forget, entire campaigns have been won or lost via literally millions of dollars. I think Kamala Harris is still in the red from her most recent campaign, but not just in the political world. Don't forget advertising. That's really big too. That has a huge hook from historical aspect. From like, what's one of the first things that you see on television now these days? Commercials. What are you mostly hit with? Drugs, drug commercials. It's that. It's drugs, and it's dishwashers, and it's candidates to those who have certain sides that they want to demolish. And so I want to talk about two people mostly tonight. A guy named Edward Bernays, who mostly nobody knows anything about, but is called basically the father of public relations. And that got moved over to, because he pushed that line, the father of propaganda. And then there's another one who has also alternately been called the father of propaganda, but him not so much. But I will differentiate the two for you about that tonight. And that guy is Josef Goebbels, Goebbels. And you probably heard that guy before. Most people know him. Most people have heard about him. He was the Nazi minister of propaganda. And people have called propaganda a creative force. Perhaps that's what it initially started out with, or that was the primary reason. But boy, did that crap change, like really fast. Today, mostly it's everything but that. It is meant to be used as a cudgel, as a battering ram, as a weapon. So a side note, yeah, I said I'd address this, and I think, okay, I'll address this now while I'm still thinking about it. Gaslighting, to my mind, is very similar to this, with the exception that gaslighting takes what is directly before you, what is right in front of your face, what you can see directly, what you can hear with your very own little ossicles. And then gaslighting tries to convince you, well, that's not there. That's not what you're seeing. And that's not what you're hearing. And by the way, if you are seeing that, or if you are hearing that, it's you who are crazy. You're the crazy one, only you. And that is how conspiracy theorists become conspiracy realists, so to speak. So the 18, I started to backtrack this stuff, and I tried to figure out, okay, what's the background with propaganda, where did it come from, the word and all that kind of stuff. And what I discovered is it mostly came from around the 1800s. And that's where it really started to shine. Yeah, I mean, you can go back to the American Civil War that wrapped in 1865. And back then, the Civil War, because of the printing press, boy, Gutenberg opened up a whole bunch of mechanical whoop-ass in terms of the printing world. And he had no idea where this is going to go. It was essentially created for what was known or became known as the Gutenberg Bible, one of the first times that it was printed and people didn't copy it, word for word by, back in my day with stone and rocks and pickaxes. But instead, it came out in like printed material and illustrations and posters that were used to truly recruit people on both sides, the blue and the gray, and to make the opposite one the enemy. Well, you're thinking, oh, well, gee, God, it sounds a lot like World War II. Yeah, sure it does. You bet it does. And then it made me think of this other guy. Okay. Remember, if you will, P.T. Barnum's circus. Back then, I was the guy that cleaned the elephant hoofs. That circus was nothing but hype and hyperbole. And it worked really well. Do you guys, for example, remember his really famous saying, which was, "There's a sucker born every minute." And of course there is. And it was him creating propaganda to sell his circus that you bought off on, wherein he considered you a sucker. Hold that thought, if you will. I'm going to expand on that, I hope. So in the process of looking backwards at Edward Bernays, I found some really interesting factoids about the dude. Okay, so he was born in Vienna, Austria. And anybody, what's one of the first things that you think of if you know anything about history? Most people don't. Most of the people here do. Not most of the hit and runs here do, but the ones who are the consistent followers of myself at SHR. What we know is, let's see, Vienna. Who's linked up to Vienna? Oh, that's right, Sigmund Freud. Okay, here's a little bit of an oddity. Sigmund Freud was the uncle of Edward Bernays. And so Bernays ended up emigrating to the United States. And after World War I, Bernays coined the phrase public relations council. And he wrote a book in 1923 called Crystallizing Public Opinion. What he said specifically, and this is, again, a very significant hook, something that you need to know about the background of propaganda. And he said specifically that elites, that's his word, elites should engineer consent in democracies to maintain order. Now, what do you think that displays or indicates or is illustrative of the mindset of somebody that says something like that? And that's similar to, listen, I know how to run your life better than you would ever know how to run your life. As a matter of fact, by way of propaganda, I'm going to make sure that I am given the ability to run your life. Does that in any way, shape, or form sound remotely similar to something, a whole bunch of things that we're experiencing today, and the smart people of you would say, oh yeah, that's right. It sounds really, really familiar. So propaganda, essentially lying in mass, was justifiable because you could use that as a tool to keep the rabble and the proles like you and me under control, because we're stupid enough to buy it. So Bernays, like Sigmund Freud, viewed the public as, look, we are irrational and we are stupid and we are driven by subconscious desires. That's Freud. We're driven by emotions, and propaganda was an easy means to divert or manipulate these emotions and base impulses that we have as humans that other people who are smarter than us can take advantage of. So Bernays' campaigns were groundbreaking. In the 1920s, for example, this is where the manipulation started with products. The American Tobacco Company. Okay, he orchestrated what I found out was the Torches of Freedom March, where women publicly smoked cigarettes to associate it with emancipation and boosting female smoking rates. And let's see, for another huge company, Procter and Gamble, he popularized, this dates back too. Remember the clear, not clear, but they're just white rectangles of soap called Ivory soap. Pretty simple. And he popularized Ivy soap, and Procter and Gamble popularized Ivy soap through contests and a whole bunch of endorsements. So Bernays, he ended up advising presidents like Calvin Coolidge and corporations, and he sort of commercialized and weaponized propaganda's potency. And what he said was not entirely dissimilar to Alinsky and his book, except Bernays did it much earlier. And some people say, well, I don't know, maybe he did it a lot better than that. So in politics, and again, going back into history, Bernays influenced back in 1954, 4 years after I was born. Let's see, there was a CIA coup in Guatemala to protect United Fruit Company's interests. Bernays was instrumental in that. And they ended up framing that as, well, we're working against communism back there. And his real salt of the earth book, just called Propaganda, I got to look at that. I think that came out in 1928, said that the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is a really important element in democratic society. Now, democratic society, he's not talking about you and me. He's talking about democratic society in terms of who's going to pull the damn strings. And it's not going to be us, the rabble, the proles, the groundlings. It's not going to be anybody like that. Not the serfs. Oh, hell no. It's going to be the ruling elite. He already used that word much earlier. So as a result, Bernays is basically the most important propagandist and founder of propaganda that you never heard of. He commercialized propaganda, like I said. He made it a critical foundation to advertising because, like the president of the Alinsky Center said to me, okay, well, leftists are using this. So Ralph Benko, whom I spoke to, he says, I just don't grok the concept of, you guys think that book, Rules for Radicals, can only be used on the left. It boggles my mind. It blows the top of my head off to think that people on the right or conservatives haven't decided that they're going to go in. I mean, the book is a tool. It's right there to be used. I don't get it. Why aren't you guys using it? Well, Bernays used it. He commercialized it. He commercialized propaganda. He made it fruitful. He made it abundant. He made it pay. Okay. And critics initially said, well, you're undermining democracy. Well, it all depends on whose democracy is getting undermined. Don't you think? I think so. So he not only made it a foundation to advertising, but to politics and to media. And Marshall McLuhan wrote, the medium is the message, and the medium is the media. Critics said that, yeah, he undermined democracy. He'd say he did it to prioritize elite control, which is cool, which is wonderful, because he crafted and thought of himself as part of that elite. So if he's part of the good guys, the smart guys, the elite guys, then it's okay for him to pull the strings like a little puppet master using propaganda, because it was of benefit to he and his ilk, whom he readily quantified as, well, yeah, we're the elites. We know better than you do about, well, everything. It was just good marketing and spin. And then, of course, we had spin doctors, blah, blah, blah. That's part of propaganda too. So then it went a little bit further. Then we transition over into Soviet Russia. Okay. Lenin and Marx and Stalin used, and you've probably heard this term before. It's not used very much anymore, but they used it and manipulated it a little bit to become what they called agitprop. So if you've ever heard the term agitprop, that comes from, well, what's the etymology of agitprop? Well, let's see. Would you believe agitation and propaganda? Oh yeah, I would. And they did that by way of posters and films like Battleship Potemkin, On for Russia and the Motherland, and state media. And that was all done to glorify communism. So the state itself there, in terms of Russia, Stalin, Marx, Lenin, the state was supreme. The state ruled over all. And everything for the state, anything for the state, was justifiable. And even under Mussolini, he's the guy, Mussolini was the first guy to make the Italian trains run on time. Yeah, he was. He just had to kill a lot of people to do it. Fascist Italy under Mussolini, they did the same thing. They employed film and cinema and even architecture to project strength. Architecture. Adolf Hitler, Albert Speer. Any of you people even know those names? You'll know one, but you probably have no damn idea who Albert Speer is. Ever see any of the great marches, any of the great huge conferences that were held with thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people in front of large columns, large Grecian type columns? That came and stemmed from Albert Speer, who knew how to put on a damn good gig. And he did. And then after that, then came Nazi Germany. Okay. So, looky, I'm just about at break time. I hadn't had this spooled up because I didn't think I was going to make it to a half hour. And I've made it to a half hour. So I don't know about you, but I need a break. So I'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Listen in to the Reaver of Common Sense, where we cut through the noise of news and politics with a show equipped for bombast. Tune in Mondays and Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, and 6 p.m. Pacific, featuring a refreshing dose of reality. Jersey Joe fearlessly tackles the tough topics with no nonsense. Just pure common sense. Visit shrmedia.com, where you can hear the Reaver of Common Sense in action. He may not always be polite. He may not always be refined. But one thing's for sure. He always tells it like it is.
Are you looking for a way to boldly express your faith and love for your country? Then check out Seven Armors, the premier apparel company for patriotic men of God, where faith meets freedom in style. Our t-shirts are more than just clothing, they're statements. Bold, stylish, and meaningful. From timeless messages to modern designs, we've got something for every patriotic man of God. Wear your beliefs proudly with Seven Armors gear. Don't miss the chance to wear your faith and freedom on your sleeve. Visit 7armors.com today and join the movement. That's the number 7armors.com. 7armors.com. Faithful, vigilant, steadfast, passion.
Are you looking for bold and honest conversation about the issues shaping America? Well, let me welcome you to Unleashed 101 with Jeremy Hansen, where we take you beyond the headlines. We dive into politics and culture, struggles of everyday life. It's raw, real, and unfiltered. If you're ready for truth with a punch, pull up a chair and join us. That's right, Unleashed 101, where real talk feels like home. Find us at unleashed101.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and more. We look forward to seeing you. Unleashed 101 with Jeremy Hansen.
Freedom. One nation in all of human history was built on that bedrock. Ours. A republic of the people, by the people, and for the people. Self-government requires freedom, just as freedom requires an individual willingness to self-govern. Freedom has made America exceptional, but it can only last as long as you and I seek the good, as expressed by the laws of nature and nature's God. It can only last if you and I choose to act as people of character. Forging character has been the pursuit of Hillsdale College since 1844.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. I am BZ, Biff Zeppi, the bloviating Zeppelin. Just call me BZ, Bravo Zulu, which basically means in Navy speak, well done, or job well done, or things of that nature. Tonight, I'm talking about this. We're talking about propaganda. And propaganda works. It functions. It's effective. And that dude right there happens to be Edward Bernays, Bernays. Edward Bernays. And he was the guy that's basically acclaimed to be the father of propaganda, what turned out to be in Russian times, agitprop. He engineered consent because he was an elite, and he makes very specific mention of elites. And he also made very specific mention of he was born in Vienna, and taking his uncle's information and using it and crafting it in such a way that it would be applicable to, all sorts of things, because he realized propaganda is all about the brain. Propaganda is all about attempting to wire and then perhaps rewire the brain. So the first half hour I talked about Edward Bernays. And this naturally falls over because I had just begun addressing Nazi Germany, and the individual that most people will attribute propaganda to, although not necessarily correctly, because Edward Bernays was the founder of that. But Josef Goebbels, during Nazi Germany in World War II, he took basically all of that information, never made any attributions whatsoever to Edward Bernays, though he was using that as all the foundational material upon which to create the master race, the Third Reich. And he was answerable essentially only to Hitler. Not very many people realize that. So Josef Goebbels gets born about 1897. I had to look at that. And he was the Reich Minister of Propaganda and, a lot of people don't remember this, Propaganda and Public Enlightenment. So propaganda was the same thing as public enlightenment. I have the information, Goebbels, and all I'm doing is throwing it out there for you so that you can see clearly what I see and march and goose step along with me appropriately. So he's born in Germany. One of the other things that people don't realize about Josef Goebbels is, he never served in the army. He was never a soldier. He had a clubfoot that kept him from fighting in World War I. So oddly enough, he acquired an exemption from going into war. But what he did have, however, is he had a PhD in, literature, but he was smart enough to see what was coming down the line. So in 1924, he decides that he's going to join the Nazi Party because in his mind, he thinks that he believes this is where it's going. And I need to get on this wagon early because he envisions, can have some influence in what's going to happen. And so I'm smarter via clubfoot. I'm smarter than you are. I know how to avoid combat. I know how to avoid being killed, but I have other skills like a knowledge worker. I have skills that are valuable other than just grunt work and carrying a rifle. And I'm way too valuable to be killed in combat. So that's what's going on in his head. So he's got the charisma, all the charisma that you would need. He's got all the, just ask him, intellectual power that he would need. And so he rose pretty quickly in the party of a bunch of people that were actually not nearly as smart as he was. So he gets appointed propaganda minister way back in 1933. This is before the war starts in a bigly kind of way, around 1939, the invasion of Poland, etc. And so he hooks his link to success to Adolf Hitler because he's heard this guy talk. And he knows that Adolf Hitler, if you ever listen to any of his speeches, you listen to his words, but you also watch his body language. And after Hitler's ascent, he's hooked onto Hitler's star, and Goebbels ends up controlling like all the media, all the arts, all the entertainment, and all the information. Whoever controls information, whoever, we all know, have you not seen, or do you not acknowledge that there are people that I term information hoarders in your work? There are people who know things, and because of that, they're going to use that knowledge to make sure that they get ahead of you. And they're information hoarders. You know that, you intuit it, each and every one of you, either if you're working right now, you can probably name the individual in your work site who is that guy or that gal. Or if you're retired, you know who they were. And if you have any other groups, you know, those guys and gals, they continue. You know them, you see them, you recognize them. And that's who Josef Goebbels was. So he created a propaganda machine on the back of Edward Bernays that was predominantly, it was second to none. And that permeated through every aspect of German social life. Stop, slash. What is Islam today? Oh, that's right. It's not a religion. It's a propaganda belief system that involves every aspect of Muslim society. So it's not just this little winky thing called religion. It influences every aspect of life. Go back now to Josef Goebbels. They just had names for it. They just delineated those things. So Goebbels got a lot of what he did and what he needed to use from Bernays' ideas, and he adapted them to fit total authoritarianism. Goebbels studied. He actually went out, studied, and acquired a copy of Bernays' book, Propaganda, and emphasized, and these are critical. And once I say these three things, you're going to go, oh, yeah, well, that's right. There are three aspects that are critical to propaganda. And that's the first thing is absolutely critical. What's the first thing do you think is most important? Repetition. Repetition. Simplicity. And emotional appeal. If you keep saying the same thing over and over and over, and kiss, and make it appeal to the affective, the emotional, then you're going to hook more people in, because you're going to use what sells, and that sells. There's no two ways about that. So his principles, and if you go back and you remember this, because when I tell you this, you're going to go, oh yeah, I've heard that before. Who the hell said? Now you'll know who the hell said this. Any lie frequently repeated will gradually be accepted as truth. That's propaganda. Yes. But what also is it? I mentioned it earlier. That's gaslighting. So they both have elements of each other used in combination to hit you over the head and get you intentionally to see things their way. That's all this is for. And this is where you fit into propaganda. Those employing it believe they have to believe in your fundamental ignorance and stupidity, because it only works if that's you and you buy it. They're here to sell it, but you got to buy it. But they're working on you and working on you and working on you, and the repetition gets to you. And finally, if you look around and you begin to see, well, everyone else is wearing a mask. Why shouldn't I be wearing a mask? Everyone else is distancing. Why shouldn't I be distancing? Etc., etc., etc. So Nazi propaganda was it had a really focused and narrow application, and it was about ideological indoctrination, the Nazi Party, racial purification, the Nazi Party, and war prep, preparing the German people for war. Because we're just talking about Germany. We're just talking about the Germans. We're just talking about Hitler. And we're talking about the direct application of propaganda via the Ministry of Propaganda. I'm going to get to another person because that just made me realize there's another person to go into here in a moment. So Goebbels also, because he's not stupid and he's seen this stuff work before, so he goes for the more modern tools of his day at that time, like radio and films. And I actually saw this many years ago, and it's taken as a piece of art, taken as a piece of propaganda. There's a movie, Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will. And, oh, BZ, you like Triumph of the Will. You must be a Nazi. It's wonderfully crafted. It's one of the finest examples of propaganda in black and white that you can find. I mean, it's pretty incredible. So it was like glorifying the Nuremberg rally. That's where you'd have thousands and thousands of people and soldiers goose-stepping in cadence to one individual on a large platform, an impressive dais, lots of columns and huge Grecian pieces of art and influence all around. And so he used radio and films and printing and then so-called journalism. Okay, there was a paper called Der Stürmer, the Stormer, and it spread and wrote about all sorts of anti-Semitic screeds. And during World War II, Goebbels orchestrated morale-boosting campaigns such as he had a speech called Total War in 1943. And it's a whole bunch of disinformation to conceal defeats, because by 1943, Nazi Germany was starting to get its ass kicked. And by that time, also, Hitler was way out of line on drugs. Goebbels then asked, he takes this mold right here, he takes this lump of clay and reframes it and recrafts it, and then he adds censorship and coordination where all cultural aspects, every bit of culture in Germany had to align with the propaganda, with Nazi ideology / Islam. And again, I'm going someplace with that later. My God, I may make it over an hour. I'm shocked and pleased. So he ended up burning books by Jewish authors and leftist authors in the 30s, and all of this symbolized intellectual suppression. His diaries were like this thing of really cynical mastery. These people are so stupid. They're so desperate to be led. They're just like dogs. I lead them because I am the master of what it is that I do. Propaganda wasn't just information, but it was a weapon to forge what the Germans considered to be a unified people. Volk, V-O-L-K, was a German word for people. And the Holocaust and the way that was framed as, and again, this is propaganda. The Holocaust, folks, you have to understand, was nothing but resettlement, right? And so that's a cool, fun way to put into people's minds, well, we're not killing people. All we're doing is resettling them, and don't pay any attention to this genocide thing that's going on and this victim dehumanization thing that's going on. No, don't pay any attention to that. And then I'd like to go back because I tend to be a student of history. Ever see these three words in metal scrolling in front of concentration camps? This is propaganda. And this is gaslighting. Did you ever wonder what the three words that were hammered over the gates of concentration camps? It was Arbeit macht frei. Work makes you free. More propaganda. It's like in for a penny, in for killing 6 million Jews. It's just a work camp. But that's how effective it was. Do you remember, if you ever watched any of the Band of Brothers going into the various concentration camps, taking the German civilians just outside of these camps, dragging them into the camps, and letting people see what was around them? People buy propaganda because they want to buy the propaganda. Their minds are already linked and set into those modes. Work makes you free. Right, but if you die in the midst of it, or Zyklon B happens to come into your vicinity, pay no attention to the bodies and the civilians in these towns outside the concentration camps were used to move the bodies of the dead Jews. Anybody remember that? I think it was the last episode of Band of Brothers. But Goebbels' downfall came with a price. It came with Hitler's defeat. And then, if you remember, he and his family all committed loving familial suicide in Hitler's bunker in 1945. Just before the Russians allegedly came into the bunker, Hitler's body was allegedly taken out and burned. There are some people that say that that was false, that Hitler jumped aboard a series of transportation pieces and ended up somewhere in South America, perchance even Argentina. No one knows for sure. Yeah, we got a burnt body. Yeah, we've had sightings of Hitler. I don't know. That's history. That's a time for another age. But like I say, people think that Goebbels, that Goebbels was the father of propaganda. Not so much, but he engineered it and re-engineered it into ways that no one had conjured or envisioned before. He showed that propaganda had a maximal capability for just unchained evil, where there's no ethics involved, none of that. So post-war, and he was killed. He killed himself and his family. Post-war, the Nuremberg trials condemned his methods as crimes against humanity. That's actually where that term or that phrase came initially. Okay, but you have to realize, though, because I'm still going somewhere, even almost after an hour of just nothing but me doing this, which I don't customarily like to do. But I figured it's if I don't do anything else tonight, if I can at least enlighten a few people about the nature of propaganda, its goals, its background, its definitions, its utilizations, its applications, if I don't do anything other than that tonight, I will have been satisfied. And then I will be able to, I hope, come back Thursday night, and Mike Fitzpatrick and I can talk about all things digital, all things hacking, and all things AI. But after that, let's see, who else took advantage of Bernays and Goebbels? Oh, that's right. It wouldn't be Mao's Cultural Revolution, would it? Or how about North Korea's cult of personality from all the Kim Jong-un, uns, etc., worshipped as little gods? So World War II basically amplified propaganda just globally. The Allies countered various Axis powers with agencies like the U.S. Office of War Information. We, too, produced our own films, our own broadcasts. We had our radios. I can remember distinctly sitting in front of a radio in the 1940s and listening to various speeches by Roosevelt. By that time, I was only 100 years old, so I was still a very young tyke, but I can distinctly remember the broadcasts of that. And then the Cold War entered, and then this stuff just exploded. There were ideological battles. There were U.S. initiatives. There's something you probably have perhaps never heard of, the Voice of America, promoting capitalism, and the Soviet end on that side was Pravda, which touted, oh, communism is wonderful, communism is great. And perhaps you're thinking, well, geez, I kind of see where BZ is going right now, because, we're seeing propaganda now and we're seeing gaslighting now. Hey, just not long ago, do you remember Joe Biden / Otto Penn's Ministry of Truth, right out of Eric Arthur Blair's novel, 1984? Eric Arthur Blair, you remember that guy? George Orwell. And that time in 2022, I think it was. It was called the Disinformation. It was called two things. It was called the Disinformation Governance Board in 2022. And it had, and I'm going to hook you, I'm going to give you a brain worm and a song link in your brain that you won't be able to get out the rest of tonight. Remember that really kind of oddly wacky leftist white chick, Nina Jankowicz, singing about, and she was singing songs about the Ministry of Truth. And then it became so much like Orwell's Ministry of Truth that I think Jankowicz only lasted maybe 2 or 3 months before someone in the Biden administration thought maybe this isn't a good road or a good look at this point. So Nina Jankowicz, that's probably a person that you didn't need to remember at all. What do I have? I got about another minute or so. So after World War II, what happened is that television advertising, that came around. The 60s counterculture, I was there for that crap. I saw it. And people like that in the 60s used posters and music for anti-war messages. I mean, that crap was all over my campuses, all the three college campuses that I attended during those times in my days. And government didn't fail to disappoint with that either. What with you remember CIA psychological operations, or what they called psyops, in conflicts like Vietnam, because the phrase back then is like hearts and minds. Oh, if we can just win the hearts and minds of these people, what an inroad we can make. So what happened is that Edward Bernays' consumerist model, which was his to craft, just exploded. And then, oddly enough, big Madison Avenue agencies took that crap and ran with it, and they began to shape desires. And if you want to see an excellent representation of that, go back and watch Mad Men. That was a great series, actually. But that's propaganda. That's nothing more than propaganda. So bots, trolls, fake news, Karine Jean-Pierre's, what'd she call them? She called them deep fake videos. Okay. Which shoveled massive amounts of gaslighting. Okay, it's like, don't look at this dementia-addled man over here and think that he's dementia-addled, because he's not. And those videos that you're seeing of that, those are, as she termed them, deep fake videos. So today's algorithms, all they do is just, they blow up all the echo chambers. They fulfill Goebbels' original hit him, the repetitive principle on a global scale. And it's like Wuhan 19 highlighted propaganda's dual role: lock people down and then take advantage of people locked down in unheard of ways. And when I come back, what we're going to do is go through some examples of that. And if I still have a voice left, I shall continue. Let's take a break because I really need one myself right now.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Mission log. Intrigue. I mean, let's face it, who's even counting anymore? The Lost Wanderer is officially off course, chasing rogue rocket launches, fringe science, and things that probably violate causality. If it burns fuel, bends time, or makes scientists very uncomfortable, yeah, I'm probably going to talk about it. Every other Sunday on KLRN Radio, The Lost Wanderer, because space doesn't come with a roadmap, and honestly, I wouldn't follow if it did.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism, so common today, is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Hey fellas, are you mission ready? You need to check out Mission Ready Men via Earl Big E Jackson on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Central, and noon Eastern. It's a show that equips you to navigate our society's challenges from a biblical perspective with courage and conviction. Tune into Mission Ready Men as we examine our culture through the prism of biblical truths, teachings, and how to apply them in our daily lives. Prepare to step up, stand out, and step into your role as a man as ordained by God. That's Mission Ready Men, hosted by Earl Jackson on the SHR Media Network. And get mission ready.
Want to make an immediate difference in the life of a critically ill child? You have the ability to do that right now. Make a donation to Dream Makers for Life, the organization that restores dreams to seriously ill children and their families. You can sponsor a dream pack for a child, which contains a clear PVC backpack, a dry erase board adventure coloring book, a journal, and dry erase markers to inspire a critically ill child to envision a future adventure and hope. Want to become a dream maker for life yourself? Go to dreamforlife.org. That's dreamforlife.org. Help a child. Help a family. There is always hope.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome back to BZ's Saloon. I'm BZ. I have shocked even myself in terms of I have not played one video yet. And trust me when I tell you that I'm going through some sort of video withdrawal. But that's okay. My tinnitus is guiding me where I go tonight, but I decided, okay, well, let's see how long we can go. Maybe we can do a full 2 hours, maybe we can't. I'm just going to motor on along. I'm not looking at chat because I can't see that small. My brain is not allowing me to. When this hits me, everything, my ability to concentrate is, I just have to be really, really direct in what it is that I do and what I decide that I'm going to share. One thing that I didn't do, however, is I didn't give a Jake update. He's actually been doing remarkably well. He has begun to eat really certain specific things. He'll eat what he wants when he wants, but he's like the senior dog in the house, so he gets to do whatever the hell he wants to do. And most recently, and this is really weird, but wonderfully, wonderfully weird, he would go up to the water bowl, stare at it for maybe a minute or two, but within the past 3 or 4 days, he'll walk up to it, and then if we're sitting in the living room, we can hear from the kitchen, lap, 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 lap. He's drinking water again, which for us is a shock. We at SHR are trying to figure out what the hell is going on with YouTube. When I just started the stream, I use StreamYard. When I just started the stream, StreamYard sent me a little note before I began the show, even before I went live, and it said, you know, good luck hooking up to YouTube. And by the way, if you just tuned in, good luck hooking up with X, because we're seeing that X is not doing any streaming right now. So if you guys are encountering some problems with X, well, I was warned. I didn't really have the ability to tell you about that. So I don't know. I could be talking to myself right here for all I know. This thing could maybe not even be going on YouTube. I don't know. It could, nothing could possibly be happening on X, and I wouldn't know. But I'm just going to treat this like, okay, everything is functioning fine. The breezes are blowing. I'm in Hawaii, and there are no problems whatsoever. And I just have to make that assumption. Marco Rubio, can you fix this shit? That's all I'm saying. It's just help us. Would you help a brother out and just help us fix this shit? Now, when I'm talking about propaganda tonight, there's propaganda, and the two main areas that I planned to focus on tonight, although I don't know how much further I'm going to get, because now I've had to turn my headphones way, way down to the point where I almost can't hear myself, because I'm also mostly deaf. So it's spooling up again. That's wonderful how that works. So if I can only get to these two areas tonight to talk about propaganda and address how this is used in these two major areas, these two major arenas, as I already prior indicated, the tranny scene and the Muslim scene. And this was most recently typified in the past 2 weeks by murders committed by trans units against family and strangers, one in Canada, one in Maine, most recently, and then the big issue of, oh my God, it's a scales now. It's either dogs or Muslims. And I'll get to that too. Because the propaganda, I may as well just state this up front. The propaganda is that our lives are enriched by tranny units. And the propaganda is our lives are enriched by muzzy units. And the answer is no. That's absolute stark, raving, mad bullshit. It's propaganda. And it's gaslighting. You can see what the trans units are doing to people around us. And you can see what Islam is doing, not just to various cities around the United States, but the nation as well, and to all of the other Western nations, predominantly Europe right now. So that's just all propaganda. They enrich in. No, they don't. They're either mentally defective or they just want to kill you and subsume you all. They are the Borg. Assimilate or die. And it's in front of you, and the gaslighting is, you see it, you hear it. You're not processing it because you don't want to. And you don't, there are many of you that don't believe in the concept of evil as it exists. There can be no evil. Humans are not evil. Well, I'm sorry. Well, no, I'm not. If you think that way, fuck y'all. You are terribly, terribly wrong. But you don't follow my show because you think that I'm a withering person, and someday he'll come out of his shell. Filters busted. Filters gone long time ago. Just warning you for that. This story, the most recent. Transgender father. This was yesterday. Today is the 17th, February 17th, the year of our Lord 2026. It's 9:12 Pacific, and it's midnight 12 Eastern. And this occurred yesterday, the 16th. Transgender father Robert Dorgan, ID'd as Rhode Island hockey shooter who gunned down family, as sick posts revealed. Well, let me put up first from last week. There's the tranny unit that they called a female. Now, this is a guy. This is a dude with a 5 o'clock shadow. And I'm being very kind. But even Reuters back last week said, oh, no problem. Only 10 dead in Canada, including the female suspect after Canada school shooting as it happened. That's how propaganda works. And the American media maggots and the European media maggots have all bought their own bullshit. And this results. Okay, well, this is the guy, Robert Dorgan, the Rhode Island hockey shooter who gunned down his family. He was 56. He shot 4 family members and a family friend before he turned the gun on himself as he went to a Pawtucket ice rink. And his name was Roberta Esposito. That's Roberta Esposito right there. Hey, look. Now, this was pointed out to me on social media. Now, if you look closely, if you're in portrait mode on YouTube, you're really going to have to get close to look at this, or look at the photo later, perhaps. But hey, look, there's a Nazi SS tattoo on his right arm. And in social media, people said, oh, see, there's a transsexual who loves Donald Trump. To which I responded, and rightly so, you know what? I don't care whose tranny is what, or what they believe in, or their political philosophy. They're all demented and mentally defective. Period. End of statement. Here's that same guy again. That's not Roberta Esposito. That's a guy with the same SS tattoo on his right arm. Oh, look, at a hockey rink. Gee, I wonder, BZ, if the bone of contention in his family and why he shot his family is because they were not in keeping with his delusions, his fetishes of believing him to be a chick with a dick. That may have been a familial bone of contention. See what I did there? Move on, BZ. So I just want to go over that and indicate again the tranny unit cohort is one of the most violent per capita in the United States. Dangerously violent. The other thing I want to point out, and I will read this because I know for certain you'll not be able to read this yourself. The language, the letters are simply too small. But this is from a person named S. Yarden, and I have more to say about this. Hoping the creek don't rise. This is from someone named S. Yarden from Brooklyn, New York. I wish I never listened to the medical and psychiatric community when they told me it was possible to change my sex. What a lie. Very dangerous and unethical. Sex reassignment surgery is a hit and miss type of surgery, but they don't tell you that. They never do. And maybe if I didn't have autism, maybe if my brain wasn't so defective, as they all are, if you think you're a girl or a boy or whatever, you are not assigned at birth as you came out of that loving canal. Maybe I would have caught on before it was too late. I wish there was a cure for autism, but that's unlikely. If that person's autistic, they're certainly a functional autistic. It's endless suffering on top of even more suffering. I also wish voluntary euthanasia was legal. Go to Canada. They just killed a guy that was 22. My death, likely painful, has proven that ethics are not universal and are otherwise non-existent. Now, you can probably see that there are two paragraphs that are circled. This is where it gets down to the nitty-gritty. No one is truly there for me. There's no need to pretend. I have a gaping hole in my genital area with my colon spilling out, disgusting, and a ring of scar tissue blocking most of the entrance. If the colon can't discharge, that leaves it with severe blockage, which then could turn and is likely expected to into blood clots, followed by death. I've already reached the stage of blockage. Now, this is not circled in red, but he goes on to continue, or she, I don't know which, and it's actually immaterial. What hurts me the most is the loneliness and the instability to find a partner. I can't have a normal sex life. I'm a loser, and I probably deserve this deception. This is what I get for messing with nature. Mankind is destructive and self-destructed. I just wanted friendship and love. I wanted life to be easier. I wanted to be a woman since I was 15. And so at 15, someone took advantage of an individual who was clearly mentally defective. I wish I had the knowledge that I have today. I was a confused kid with no identity. Stop. Go back. I was a confused kid with no identity. I wish I could have done everything different, but it's too late now. I'm royally screwed. Here's the circled paragraph. Dr. Thomas Satterwhite and Dr. Maurice Garcia, both in California and who are my original surgeons, have basically killed me. With accessory to my death is Dr. Miroslav Zhordovec, Dr. Ranish, and I can't read this out because the red line goes through it, and Dr. Rachel somebody, and I can't read that because the red line goes through that, and Dr. Jess Ting, who all refused to help me despite having letters by one psychiatrist and 2 clinical social workers recommending reversal surgery. But this is par for the course now. This is standard for the course now. And then we get this. And so are we fundamentally surprised that this is what we're getting? Because the propaganda is telling us, now that you know intimately what connotes and denotes propaganda, we're being told that these people better themselves and they better our society. And what you're doing is you're taking individuals who are inherently mentally defective and then doing what they think they want and making it infinitely worse. And then you're shocked. Shocked, I tell you, when they have suicidal ideations that are even worse. Transgender Rhode Island maniac Robert Dorgan, who murdered ex-wife and one of their sons, had a vile Nazi tattoo. Oh, he's a Trump supporter. I don't give a fuck who he supported. Yeah, and then they showed that's what the Waffen-SS is. Yeah, fine. I get it. Move along. As the propagandists are fond of saying, move along. Don't believe in propaganda. And we're here to gaslight. Don't believe anything you see and nothing you hear. Because all these tranny units are good for the country. Good for the country? Hell, they're great for the country. Aren't they? Well, sure they are, because that's what you're being told. You're being told that they're good for the country. And so, Andy No, remember him? Great reporter. Rhode Island trans shooter's posts show years of obsessive humiliation of his murdered ex-wife. Less than a week after transgender identifying gunman in British Columbia, Canada, killed 8 women and children before turning the gun on himself. Although Reuters said it was a female, so that must be true. Gaslighting, propaganda. Another tranny shooter opened fire in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. 5 people were shot at a youth hockey game. 2 were killed. Now, if you can't read this up here, here's the guy. Here's, I guess, his nails holding his hand on what is a white Freightliner steering wheel. What the fuck? And Roberta Dorgano says, my cis wife has flames shooting from her ears when I outdo her on the weights and apparently on the nails as well. So, this is normal. There's no problem with this. And as Dr. Dawn, D-A-W-N, Michael says, you know what? We have a mental health crisis. As a therapist with 20 plus years treating gender dysphoria, we've shifted from addressing root mental issues to hasty affirmation, and it's fueling rising violence in the trans community by ignoring those deep problems. Do you think? A guy named Paul McHugh, Johns Hopkins psychiatrist in chief, boldly calls transgenderism a mental disorder, criticizing hormone therapy and surgery as misguided, rooted in psychology, not biology. Look, but this is what the media maggots, the American media maggots and the Canada media maggots, and some of the European media maggots are saying. Shooting at school and home leaves in BC 10 dead. 10 dead in rare Canadian school shooting. Female suspect is along and among the victims. Bulletin, Canada school shooting leaves 9 dead as female suspect is identified. Canada, school shooting, 9 killed by female, 10 dead, including female, 10 dead, including female, 10 dead after woman opens fire, female identified as suspect, 10 dead, including female suspect at school and home. Are you triggered? As the Trump administration attacks trans people, some queer folk are armed and ready to bash back. Because that's normal, because you take somebody that's screwed up in the head, and then perhaps you think at, like most white leftist chicks do, well, I didn't get a girl, and I want a girl, so I had a boy. Why don't I just butcher the shit out of him, and then I'll make myself a girl who will love me forever? And that's what I call the mental, chemical, and physical butchery of children. Leave the kids alone, Pink Floyd. But you're not doing it. Now, some people are saying 18. I'd like to see 21. Men's brains aren't fully formed until 26. So that's right. That's smart. Let's take a kid who's, 10 or 11 or 12 and just make a pirate out of them. Do whatever you want. Do whatever they want. Because, after all, it's all about the kids, right? And adults, you're just there to be their friend. You're not there to help them or guide them. Trans shooters, Rhode Island hockey shooter. Trans shooter, Tumbler Ridge shooter. Trans, Nashville Covenant School shooter. Trans, Aberdeen shooter. Trans, Minneapolis Annunciation shooter. Trans, Denver STEM school. Trans, Colorado Springs, non-binary. But you just need to do what they say. So they have a fetish. Big deal. Who cares? Well, truly, like I say, you want to do that shit to yourself, 21 and over, knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. But then that's no guarantee that some of these assholes, some of these fucked up trans units, aren't going to walk into a hockey rink and decide to nail your ass. Because they're dangerously psychotic. New Rhode Island rink shooting adds a string of past mass attacks involving tranny suspects. This isn't even all of them. 2026, Pawtucket. 2026, Tumbler Ridge. 2025, Minneapolis. 2024, Perry, Iowa. 2023, Nashville, Tennessee. 2022, Colorado Springs. 2018, Aberdeen, Maryland. 4 dead, 5 dead, 6 dead, 5 dead, 2 dead, 29 injured, 8 dead, 25 injured, 3 dead, 3 injured.
Yesterday's attack, just the latest in a string of high-profile mass shootings allegedly involving transgender individuals dating back to 2018. Among them, shootings in Maryland, Colorado, Tennessee, Iowa, Minnesota. Of course, the shooting in BC, British Columbia, and the shooting yesterday in Pawtucket. Now, there are also multiple reports tonight, Kaylee, that the gunman shot 3 of his own kids, killing one of them along with his ex-wife, before then turning another gun on himself and deleting himself. Now, there are 3 victims who remain hospitalized tonight. Of course, we're continuing to monitor their condition. If we get more information, I promise to pass it along. But for now, back to you.
Please do.
That's Kevin Corke. By the way, if you guys have not listened to Kevin Corke, he's a pretty squared away dude. I like his stuff. Very smart individual. Also this. I'm going to read this to you. And fuck. You tell me what's wrong with this. Oh, BZ, if anything, there might not be anything wrong with it. Well, yeah, not until we come back anyway.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where leftists are running out of metal for the safety pins of their soothing red diapers, one man stands alone, attempting to fundamentally change America, one leftist diaper at a time. BZ, your conservative Sherpa, is guiding you through the maelstrom of Democrat leftists and globalist lies, chaos, deceit, and betrayal. Listen to BZ Saloon on select and exclusive Tuesday and Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Central, and 11 p.m. Eastern on the SHR Media YouTube channel, Twitch, KLRN, Rumble, and X at BZ Saloon. It's one great late-night Conservatarian talk radio show. Be there. Aloha.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name is Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRN You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRN Radio.
It's Sean from the Edge of Liberty. Just like the Bidens, I too am moving. Only in my case, it's days and times. That's right. You can now find the Edge of Liberty Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern, and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on 11 Eastern on the SHR Media Network. Join me as we talk politics, news, alcohol, fun, not so much fun, clowns, small kittens, large kittens, dogs, amoebas, and anything else that just pops into my mind while I'm on the air. That is Monday and Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast, on YouTube, X, KLRN Radio, Facebook, Twitch, and anywhere else a good podcast is found. Please check out our website, shrmedia.com. I will see you live on the air.
Attention, all patriotic women of faith. Yep, I'm talking to you, sis. Are you looking for high-quality, super soft apparel that reflects your love for country and your devotion to God? Look no further than Carry Girl Gear. Picture this. You rocking a tee so soft it's like being hugged by a cloud, all while showing off your love for God and country. Sounds dreamy, right? Well, welcome to reality, babes, because that's what we're all about here at Carry Girl Gear. We specialize in super soft tees, tanks, and more, designed specifically for the strong, patriotic woman who proudly wants to carry their message of faith and freedom. When you shop with us, you're not just getting a t-shirt. You're joining a community of like-minded women who are proud to wear their beliefs straight on their tees. So whether you're sipping sweet tea on the porch or leading the charge for faith and freedom, do it in a Carry Girl tee. Because life's too short for stiff, boring tees. CarryGirl.com, where faith and freedom meets fashion.
Independence. With that declaration, America was born. Inspired by a belief in the God-given rights of every human being, and in the good that comes from exercising these rights well. The founders of our great nation chose independence. As do we. Hillsdale College accepts no government funding because independence makes possible the good to which we aspire.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Thanks for being here tonight, folks. I have made it an hour and a half. I'm surprised, but I can barely hear myself because I've turned down the headphones so much because things are popping off upstairs. I'm hoping to make the full show, the full 2 hours. I've got an article that I want to read where someone is surprised at the things that have turned out for them. I'll read just a little bit. You know, if they could possibly be more insulting, and maybe they could have been maybe a little bit more insulting, but let me show you from whence this stems. Oh, that's right. It's the Huffington Post. So the article is, I'm an outsider, living deep in mega country. This is what most people will never know about life here. I still don't know if I belong here. So by Maya Fisher, okay, February 17th. This is an article issued today. And then Maya Fisher makes reference to a holler, an area, an ATV roars down the road, somebody's rooster is late to the party. Out here, noise is how you remind the world you're still alive. So it's a holler. Wait, Maya Fisher couldn't possibly be talking about Virginia, could she? Because it's Maya, right? I live at the bottom of a holler, which is a hollow, in Dickinson County, Virginia, where the mist hangs low and the dirt road winds down like a scar, the kind that healed wrong but still holds. Out here, everybody knows your business before you do. They remember what your mama said in 86, who you dated in high school, and they keep track of both like scripture. Appalachia can love you, sure, but it also never forgets what it thinks you are. These days, now this is called a clue, kids. These days, they call me Maya. That still surprises a few folks, though it's been over 5 years now. Sometimes I imagine the gossip spreading like kudzu. So this is Maya. This is a dude. This is a dude that not terribly is dissimilar to a bloated toad frog who demands in an area like Appalachia that you respect him. When I told the truth about myself, it wasn't fireworks and parades, it was quiet. Now, I think you can see where this is going. Maya, who used to be, who the hell knows, a dude. Maya expected fireworks and parades and is disappointed that people in Appalachia didn't provide fireworks and parades. I still don't know if I belong here. I'm deep in MAGA country, behind enemy lines. Like I said, Huffington Post, take it for what it's worth, but this is what people expect. This is what propaganda does to you, not for you. This is gaslighting, and you're supposed to, by way of propaganda and gaslighting, you're supposed to affirm a fetish. And my response to that is, okay, it looks to me like you're an adult. It looks to me like you're over 21. Cool. But you did that to yourself. Now you're an adult and you're going to have to live with it. Life equals consequences. And life is a path of choices. And my choice is not to buy in to your mental dementia. I didn't buy into Biden's, and I certainly shall not be buying into yours. It really isn't that much more complicated than that. And then, in terms of propaganda, this is the new issue that popped off this week. Let's see, what was it? 2 days ago, I think. And this has created a massive kerfuffle all throughout the fruited plain. Speaking of fruited plain, today, the 17th, is the day that Rush Limbaugh passed 5 years ago in 2021. If there were ever an individual that we need now, it would have been Rush Limbaugh, a truly stellar individual who put us on the path to reclaiming any amount of sanity that we had lost over the years, and who made people realize in the late 80s and early 90s that, it wasn't just one of us that felt weird, like this doesn't feel like our country anymore, and it feels like we're losing it. And Rush Limbaugh essentially said, no, you're not alone. I'm not alone. We are all in this together. And his dittos came from, because I used to call into his show a long time ago, and that's why I became BZ, for example, is because I was still working for cops and I didn't want to give my real name out on the radio. That's how I got the name BZ. My real name is nowhere in social media. It was nowhere on the radio. And I tell you, that's one of the smartest things that I've ever done, is I never put my true name out in any social media at all, anywhere, at any time. Happy then and happy now. But dittos came from listening to Rush Limbaugh, realizing that you're not the only voice in the wilderness, that you feel like he does, and all the other people feel like he does, and all the others who were calling in, and you realize you're not alone. We, normal people, are not alone. The mentally defective are trying to run the asylum, but only if we let it happen. But we are the normal ones. They are not. And if you don't care for the we and they thingy, leave. Couldn't care less. I'm not here for numbers or anything else. I'm here for my own personal entertainment. And when this stops being fun for me, I will stop doing the show. But dittos came from, in terms of, that's how I feel, Rush Limbaugh. And then instead of going into a big exposition of how you got there, that you feel the same way that all these other people do, people just started saying, Rush, hi, ditto. Ditto in terms of, I see what you're saying. I see that there's a whole bunch of us, and I acknowledge that fact. That's how dittos came from. Then dittos, then mega dittos, etc. If you weren't aware of that, Rush Limbaugh, boy, do we need you now. I bet you're looking down and going, you fuckers, I told you. Oh, my brain. And anyway, 2 days ago, in terms of, see, the show is about this, propaganda, because propaganda works. That's Edward Bernays. I spoke about Edward Bernays and Josef Goebbels in the first hour. And now you know a bit of history about propaganda, how it works, where it works. Still alive today. Very, very strong today. Gaslighting, very, very strong today as well. As long as you're strong enough to refute it yourself. And I'm not a victim, and I'm not a moron, and I don't buy that crap because I don't have to. Guess what? You don't have to either. Normal people are actually starting to fight back. All the others, they're not normal. They love terrorists. They love illegal invaders. They want illegal invaders to vote. They're their friends, their community. They don't want true voting. They want voting fraud. They want Somali fraud. They want state fraud, corruption, graft. They want grifters. They want terrorists. They want criminals who rape and murder and shoot and slash and stab. And they don't care. They, Demorats and leftists, they don't care how many bodies they have to stack for this, nor do they care who gets stacked for this. You remember the leftist that shot at ICE agents in Dallas, Texas? Shot in a van, killed 2 illegal invaders, not the ICE agents. So again, I say they don't give a shit who they kill. It's all about principle. And we don't care how many bodies we have to stack and pack. Whether it's your wife that gets raped, or your brother that gets murdered, or somebody that's hit by a truck driven by an illegal invader who doesn't have insurance, or if you happen to get sodomized by an illegal invader and a good-hearted, kind judge lets him out and makes sure that ICE doesn't kick him out of the country. If there's anything wrong, bad, or evil, a Demorat will be for it or voting for it or making sure that you can't vote against it. And it all comes back down and stems from propaganda. Well, 2 days ago, this became a bone of contention. Oh my God, the shit is hit the fan. Congressman Randy Fine. If I could send this guy $1,000, I would. Who's to say I won't? I might. So at 2:24 p.m., February 15th, he sent out this one-sentence tweet. If they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. Now, where does that come from? That comes from Mamdani and Muzzies in New York City saying and advocating for dogs must be kept inside. They cannot be allowed to be outside where it would affect us. We hate dogs. They are unclean. And so as a result of that, because Muzzies are going to be running New York very shortly, just ask Zoran, Kami Muzzy, liar, Takia, believing, anti-Semitic, racist Mamdani. Have I gotten all the adjectives in there right? I think perhaps I have. So Congressman Randy Fine said if they force us to choose, say, in New York City, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. Let me make my choice very clear. I've been all over social media the past 2 days making my choice very clear. Fuck Muslims. Fuck Islam. I'll take my dog any day of the week. Now, if you think I'm equivocating, I can say that again, but I think I've made myself very clear because, as I've said many times, I don't particularly have a filter, nor do I care to have one. And this is for context. Now, if you look down below, I don't know if you can read this, but I will read it to you because that's part of me just being a good character and being a good radio host. Congressman Randy Fine said, by the way, for context, this is the leader of one of the key mainstream Muslim groups that supported Mamdani in New York City. This is Nurdeen Kizwani. Finally, New York City is coming to Islam. Dogs definitely have a place in society, just not as indoor pets. Like we've said all along, they are unclean. Famous Palestinian activist calls for dogs to be banned as indoor pets in New York City because they are un-Islamic. Dear Muzzies, fuck off. I'll take any of my dogs over you any day. I think I've made myself fairly clear about that. But that's the brouhaha that's currently going around, and people are saying, as far as I can see, you know, I think I'll take my dog over a Muzzy any day. MAGA congressman makes sick post about Muslims and dogs. Republican Representative Randy Fine twisted a harmless joke into a racist attack on Muslims just days about Ramadan, before Ramadan. Hello, idiots. Muzzies are not a race, so it's not racist. By the way, as I've said numerous times before, where are the greatest amount of Muslims located on the planet? Well, BZ, I know the answer to that one. That's very easy. That's, I think, Saudi Arabia. No, you know, I think I'd have to go with Iraq. I think there are most Muzzies in Iraq. What about Bahrain No, Bahrain probably not, because it's not a very large country. Well, how about if I just do this? How about if I just say, BZ, the greatest amount of muzzies around are, let's just say the Middle East, the sandbox. How about that? Wrong, 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 wrong. And by the way, for those of you who just tuned in, wrong. The greatest number of Muslims on the planet are in Indonesia. Wait a minute. No. Why, yes, as a matter of fact. So this is from TNR, The New Republic, which is the leftist organ. And they'll tell you so all day and all night long. Republican Congressman Randy Fine is still an idiot, Islamophobic bigot. I don't fear Islam. Islam decides to do something bad with me. I have no fear. I'm old. I just don't believe they belong in any form of a Western civilized society. They are a barbaric death cult. They're not a religion. They're like a societal movement that, as I indicated before in the first hour of the show, involves every aspect of their society. So calling them something as limited as a religion, they are not a religion. They are an entire way of life. And with them, it's their way or the highway. They live to come into an area, take it over, and claim it for themselves. You heard, of course, about the mosque that Muslims wanted to build adjacent the Twin Towers after they fell. That's getting into the heads of the people that they consider to be infidels. And that's how they grow. That's how they're attempting to grow in Texas. That's how they have subsumed Hamtramck. That's how they have subsumed Dearborn. And that's how they've subsumed a good portion of Minnesota. So this guy just states the obvious. And the obvious is, I'm not a fan of Islam or Muslims. And you know what? I don't have to be. You know what else? I get to have my opinion. They get to have theirs. But if they think that they're going to get away with being a religion, they are not. They're just another, they're Jadsy. They're just another death cult. And that's how important they are. Now, I'm going to play a video that Christopher Hitchens did. And I'll probably end up the show with this. And I think that Christopher Hitchens is correct. He was a British massive leftist before he passed away. Huge. But he's right. Islam has to be crushed. Islam is absolutely 100% incompatible with any form of Western civilization, any form of government, any other religion, any other culture, period. So 1,400 years of Islamic history has proven, and that's why historical Alzheimer's, Santayana, you don't know your history, you're going to live it again and again and again and again. And 1,400 years of history has proven over and over again also that Muslims don't come to a country to assimilate or fit in or embrace our traditions or anybody else's traditions for that matter, or our customs or our culture or a language. They come into, Islam and Muslims come into a country in order to simply dominate, to control, to conquer, bammo by any means, or bammon by any means necessary, as commanded by their Quran and the Hadith, to implement Sharia law. So, Thomas Jefferson, 240 years ago, and this is going to be referenced in the video, and John Adams were smart enough to recognize the threat of Islam, and they actually did something about it back then. So, did you know, by the way, folks, that up until 1990, it was illegal for a Muslim to hold political office in the United States? That was smart. That was very intelligent. Very, very intelligent. And then we got stupid. So here's Christopher Hitchens. This is about, I think, about a minute of Christopher Hitchens. Let's hear basically what he has to say. It's about history.
In 1788, when the United States was barely a country, it was having its sailors taken as slaves by the Barbary states, the states of the Ottoman Empire in North Africa.
Tripoli.
Tripoli.
Shores of Tripoli.
Shores of Tripoli. Ships stopped. Its crews carried off into slavery. We estimate 1.5 million European and American slaves taken between 1750 and 1815. Jefferson and Adams went to their ambassador in London and said, why do you do this to us? The United States has never had a quarrel with the Muslim world of any kind. We weren't in the Crusades. We weren't in the war in Spain. Why do you do this to our people and our ships? Why do you plunder and enslave our people? And the ambassador said very plainly, Mr. Abdul Rahman said, because the Quran gives us permission to do so, because you are infidels. And that's our answer. And Jefferson said, well, in that case, I will send a navy which will crush your state, which he did. Islamic fundamentalism is not created by American democracy. It's a lie to say so. It's a masochistic lie. And it excuses those who are the real criminals, and it blames us for the attacks made upon. In 1780.
And there you have it. Oh, that history is so damn convenient. How terrible it is to be reminded of truth. Full show. I'm surprised. Holy crap. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network and tons of other bulbous podcast locales. As per normal, I'm in the process of renegotiating a few new sponsors. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, Shure, and Electro Voice microphones by the people that manufacture my mixer, Arrakis, and also by the Pratt & Whitney Engine Company. They create dependable engines which produce thrust that you can trust. And tiaras tonight, you haven't seen it, but you'll see it now. Tiaras are by My Little Pony. And that's true. Also, thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, oh my God, do I need you guys right now. So I want to thank everyone who is listening tonight, live or later in podcast, in chat, everybody. God bless, take care, be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night and good luck.